Discover the incredible life-changing moment when a billionaire received a heartwarming text for the first time in years. Jake Morgan stepped into the old Maplewood church, a place thick with childhood memories and sorrow. The scent of polished wood and freshly cut flowers wrapped around him, pulling him into a past he thought he'd left behind forever. As he settled into a pew, every familiar face felt like a puzzle piece of his lost youth neighbors wrapped in muted grief, eyes heavy with unspoken regrets. His father's casket sat at the front, a stark reminder of all that had been severed. Guilt twisted in Jake's chest, raw and painful. He was a billionaire now, swaddled in wealth, yet here he felt like a ghost. His gaze landed on his mother, her heartache cutting deeper than any blade. The lines on her face were trails of years spent struggling with an ever-present void left by Jake's departure. All his success, the empire he'd built in sunlit towers, felt meaningless in the wake of her anguish. Flashbacks of family dinners, laughter at the table, and their cozy living rooms swirled in his mind, each moment tinged with what could have been. As the service commenced, an unexpected jolt vibrated through him. His phone buzzed with a message that it was from Sarah, his childhood friend. "Jake, I'm thinking of you today. Remember that summer we spent catching fireflies? We felt invincible. I truly hope you find your way back home." Her words pierced deep, igniting a flicker of warmth in his frozen heart. He could almost hear her laughter, see her infectious smile, a part of him long buried under ambition and solitude. What had he traded for success? The embrace of real connection? The service dragged on, voices of nostalgia vibrating against the wallpaper, but Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting on the other side of grief. When the last eulogy faded into silence, he found himself shuffling to the reception back in the town hall that sparked his dreams and crushed his heart. That night, he reluctantly found himself at a fundraiser organized by Sarah, ignited to support local veterans. The place was buzzing. Yet the atmosphere was thick with a tension that surged through the crowd. The community center, once a lively hub for the townsfolk, faced closure due to a scandal that left them scrambling. Jake couldn't ignore the pain hanging in the air and the folks he once called friends, now straining under the weight of struggling livelihoods. Sarah's voice cut through the noise. "Jake, your resources could change everything," she pleaded, her eyes fierce. "What good is wealth if it only isolates you?" As he looked around, Jake realized it wasn't just about him anymore. It was about roots, communities entwined in shared hopes and dreams. Tim, his younger brother, stood rigid in the corner, resentment flickering in his eyes. The choice loomed over Jake, but secrets began to surface. The reason behind the scandal was buried deeper than neglect. As Jake faced the townsfolk, the room buzzed with uncertainty, disappointment, and anger. His heart raced. Would he let this town crumble, or step back into the warmth he had once known? The weighty silence urged him to speak, but with the walls about to close in, he knew he had to find his voice. The stakes had never felt so real. What would his answer be? Would he finally embrace the family and community that had cherished him? A breath hung heavily, and all eyes turned to him, the moment of reckoning ripe in the air. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every gaze locked onto him. Fear and doubt clawed at him from every direction. He could almost hear the whispers. Will he help us? Is he still one of us? The stakes were high, layers of expectation woven tightly around him. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice trembling slightly. I know many of you have faced struggles because of decisions I made long ago." He could see his mother's eyes glistening with hope. Sarah stood proudly, radiating belief in him, while Tim merely stared, arms crossed tight against his chest. He gathered his thoughts, allowing his resolve to harden against the suffocating tension. "Years ago, I thought chasing dreams meant leaving everything behind, including all of you. But now, after being away, I see the truth. Wealth isn't just about what you have, it's about what you can give to the people who mean something." Murmurs roamed through the audience, a mix of fear and hope taking root. Could they trust him? "I want to help rebuild this community," he declared. "I'll contribute to keeping this center open, but we need to work together. I can't do it alone." A swell of emotion washed over him, mingled with relief. To open those wounds, to allow his heart to beat in step with theirs again felt like rediscovering a part of himself he thought lost. Sarah's smile brightened the dim room, and for a moment, everything felt possible again, but then, Tim's voice sliced through the optimism. "And what makes you think we'll trust you again? You left us when we needed you most, Jake." The anger seeping out in Tim's words struck Jake like a slap. He had never meant to abandon them, but intentions were now irrelevant. The pain was real, raw, and palpable. "I know," Jake replied, his voice softening. "I've made mistakes. I thought I could buy a better future for myself, but at what cost? My heart broke when I lost all of you, yet I was too proud to admit it. I'm here now and I'm willing to change, but I need you to meet me halfway." Silence engulfed the room, the only sound being faint rustles of disbelief. Jake's heart pounded in time with the collective breaths held. After what felt like hours, Sarah stepped forward, her eyes shimmering. "Everyone deserves a second chance, especially someone as lost as he seems to be. Maybe we can start rebuilding together?" The ripple of murmurs surfaced again, this time mixed with reluctant agreement. Jake could feel hope blooming even amidst the cynicism. He began to share his vision for the community, a place of interconnectedness where dreams could thrive instead of suffocate. As he spoke, Jake noticed Tim's expression slowly shift. An opening, a crack in the armor. The moment felt fragile, yet full of possibility. But just as things seemed to turn, an unexpected voice rang out from the back. "You really think you can just waltz back in and fix everything? This town has scars that money can't heal," a familiar face spat. It was Mark, the man who had always resented Jake's wealth and success. Jake's heart sank. Was the past already catching up with him again? With Mark's remark ringing heavy in the air, Jake struggled to find the right words, fighting to keep his newfound hope alive. Could he convince them that he was different now? Or would his past errors continue to haunt him, shrouding their path forward, the tension wrapped tighter around them, ready to unravel a deeper truth? What was truly buried in their shared history, and would Jake be ready to confront it? Jake took a moment to breathe, collecting himself. Mark's words cut deep, but he couldn't let bitterness drown out the chance he was given right now. Instead, he focused on the faces around him, those who'd been left behind, those yearning for change. "Mark," Jake started, his voice steadier now, "I can't pretend like I haven't hurt this community. I know I didn't just leave. I walked away from lives I cared about. But it's important that you hear me out. This isn't just me trying to fix my mistakes. It's about all of us." Mark opened his mouth to retort but paused, perhaps struck by the sincerity in Jake's eyes. A flicker of hesitance crossed his features, allowing the crowd's murmurs to fill the silence as they exchanged glances. It wasn't only about Jake anymore. They were wrestling with their own doubts, their own scars. "I could throw money at the problems here," Jake continued, "but that won't do anything if I don't listen to each of you. I want to learn from everyone what you need, what you've lost, and what we can build together." He glanced at Tim, who was now studying him with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Jake leaned into this moment. "Look, I understand if you're angry, Tim. You have every reason to be. Maybe I can't earn that trust back in a day, but I'm asking for the chance to show you I'm ready to work for it." The atmosphere shifted. The crowd seemed to swell with energy, voices rising in an excited buzz, each person weighing his offer. Sarah squeezed his hand and, for the first time since he walked in, he felt that they might stand a chance. "I still can't believe you'd come back," Tim finally spoke, his voice less harsh, but still cautious. "What if this is just another game for you? What if you bail again?" "I won't," Jake promised, feeling the weight of those words. "I'd burn every bridge before leaving again. I want this whatever it takes." But Mark interrupted again, a sardonic smile ghosting his lips. "What's your game, Jake? You expect these people to forgive you for stuffing your pockets while they struggled? What's in it for you?" A genuine grin broke across Jake's face, surprising even himself. "Honestly? A life without guilt. A chance to be where I belong. I don't want money or success if it comes at the cost of family. These people, they're my family. His heart pounded, and he felt the undeniable truth echo in that room. Family wasn't just about blood, it was rooted in connection, shared struggles, and dreams forged in the fires of hardship. Tim stepped forward, eyes cautiously assessing him. Let us say we give you a chance. What's your plan beyond the money? We need stability. Jobs. Hope. With newfound determination, Jake jumped into his ideas, sharing his vision for sustainable programs that would create jobs, restore the community center, and revive the local economy. He saw heads nodding, and the murmurs turned from skepticism to interest, spreading like wildfire. But just as hope began to blossom, Mark's voice surged again. You think throwing money will erase the past? You've got a lot to prove, Jake. What if you fail? Jake turned back, seriousness etched into every line of his face. Then I will fail, everything, myself included. But I won't stop trying. The room fell silent, absorbing the weight of his words. This was more than just an opportunity to make amends. It was a battle to forge a brand new future. As Jake looked into their eyes, he could see the flickers of hope struggling to ignite, but he knew it would take more than promises to kindle that fire. There was work ahead, hard work that would demand patience, compassion, and resilience. Suddenly, as if pushing through the emotional barrier, Mark blurted out, "There's something we need to discuss first. Something bigger than money, something that dives deeper than just rebuilding." Jake's heart raced again. What was Mark hinting at? Was there a wound far deeper than he anticipated? As the crowd shifted uneasily, Jake felt the ground beneath him shift too. Was he ready to face whatever lay hidden in their combined past? Would they accept his hand, or would they pull away once more? The moment hung heavy in the air, full of unasked questions and weighted truths. What lay within the shadows of their shared history, and could they collectively confront it together? Jake held his breath, the tension thick enough to slice through. Mark's gaze pierced through him, heavy with unsaid words, as if he were weighing the validity of Jake's intentions against years of heartache. The crowd hushed, worry painted each face, uncertainty coloring the room like a storm brewing just out of sight. What could be bigger than money? Jake wondered, anxiety crawling beneath his skin. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing that one unexpected gust could send him plummeting into the unknown. All right, we're listening, Tim said, his voice steady but firm. What's this bigger thing you're talking about, Mark? Mark stepped a little closer, his body language shifting from hostile to contemplative. It's our history, Jake. It's the unsolved issues that created the cracks in our community in the first place. You know that, right? Jake nodded slowly, feeling his heart race. You mean the layoffs? The factory closing? Those were hard choices. But the pain didn't end there. Mark's eyes narrowed, the memories surfacing clearly. Right. Those decisions left a wake of despair, a distrust that's been simmering. Some families lost everything overnight. And trust me when I say that it's not just about you returning with money. We need change from the ground up. Jake's chest tightened. He realized he was facing a truth he had barely grazed. What do you want from me? He needed to know. Start by acknowledging the hurt you caused. It might not be easy for you, but being vulnerable is a big part of rebuilding that trust, Mark replied, his voice softening slightly. Only then can you really lead this community. Jake took a step back, swallowing hard. He thought of the families, the individuals who had expressed their hurt and frustration, the sleepless nights he'd spent second-guessing himself. You're right. I didn't just walk away from a business, I walked away from people. He felt Sarah's hand squeezing tighter. There was warmth in her touch, but also a hint of apprehension. The crowd awaited his next words. He could almost feel their hope tangle with their skepticism, a delicate balance on the tip of a scale. I didn't realize how much my choices would echo through these lives. I thought about profits, but never considered the souls behind those numbers, he admitted, his voice cracking slightly. For that, I'm truly sorry. I want to hear your stories. I want to listen, learn, and make it right. The mood shifted again. Mark looked thoughtful, and many in the crowd exchanged glances that signaled a fracture in their initial resistance. It was a glimmer of recognition, a flicker of understanding. Tim stepped forward, an eyebrow raised. You think just saying sorry will fix it? That easy? Jake shook his head. No. It's just the beginning. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and do the hard work. I promise I will listen to your stories. Each one matters, and I'll honor that. The murmurs began to rise again. Jake could hear his heart thrumming, both in fear and anticipation. People were torn between old wounds and the possibility of new beginnings. But the hesitation lingered, thick in the air around them. Okay, Mark finally said, nodding slowly. You show us you mean it, and maybe just maybe, we'll see you as part of us again. Jake watched as the walls began to shift, one brick loosening at a time. It wouldn't happen overnight, and he knew it would be a long road ahead, but then, in the back of the room, an older woman stood up. Her face was lined with the history of struggle, but her eyes shone with the spirit of resilience. And what about our neighbors? What about those we lost to this pain, Jake? Her voice trembled with emotion. Can this really bring them back? Jake felt the air shift again, as the weight of her words hung between them like a ghost. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Deep sorrow filled the space where hope once lingered. The future felt fragile, almost irrevocably intertwined with their past. Let us start there, he finally managed, looking her straight in the eyes. Tell me their stories. Let us not forget them. And as the first story began to unravel, Jake felt the full weight of the moment. What stories would he hear? Would they break him or mend the rift? Would their pain keep him from his path to redemption? He took a deep breath, and the journey began. The room fell silent as the older woman's voice echoed in Jake's mind. Seated around him were neighbors, friends, and family, their faces etched with hurt and disbelief, yet also a flickering of hope. He braced himself, reminding himself that this moment was crucial. Please, she urged, her voice trembling slightly, we need to honor those we lost. Speak their names, tell us you know their stories. Jake looked out into the crowd, his heart racing. The old factory was a graveyard of memories, each corner holding a tale more haunting than the last. He recalled the faces of former co-workers, the warmth of shared lunches, the laughter that once filled the break room like a comforting blanket. Memories collided with the present, and he felt the walls closing in. Okay, he said, taking a deep breath. Let us do that. An uneasy silence passed, and then, slowly, a young man in the front row stood. His hands shook slightly, but his eyes were fierce. My father, he began, voice thick with emotion. He worked at the factory for 30 years. He gave everything to that job. But when the layoffs came, he lost not just his job but his dignity. It broke him. The man's voice cracked as he recalled memories. He was a proud man. He taught me how to work hard, how to provide for my family. But he lost himself that day. I watched him slip away, becoming a shadow of who he was. We lost him before he even passed away. Each word felt like a dagger, piercing Jake's heart. He could see the pain etched on the faces around him, heartache swirling in the air. He felt the weight of guilt crush him, heavy and suffocating. How could he have allowed this to happen? He didn't just make financial decisions. He reshaped lives. Sarah squeezed his hand tighter, her eyes glistening with support, but he could feel her tension mirroring the crowd's unease. He felt compelled to speak, but words eluded him. His mouth opened and closed a few times, trying to find a way to comfort them, to validate their stories. I can't imagine what you've been through, he finally said, voice shaky. What happened to your father is unforgivable, and hearing you share this, it terrifies me. I can't change the past, but I want to understand. I need to understand how to make this right. Another voice broke through the heaviness. A woman, perhaps in her 50s, stood up. My brother was driven to despair, and he took his life after the factory closed. We lost him. Can you fix that? Can anything you say bring him back to us? Her raw anguish rippled through the crowd, like an electric shock. Jake felt his chest tighten, emotions clawing at him, threatening to spill over. He inhaled deeply, fighting to gather the strength he needed. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, trembling. "All I can do is promise to honor those we've lost by fighting for a better future. I want to ensure that no one else has to suffer like your families did. Please, help me learn, help me know how to spread that promise." A pause swept across the room, the silence wound tight with disbelief. Yet, as Jake scanned the crowd, he recognized a glimmer of something different, a fragile hope beginning to unfurl, like a flower pushing through cracked concrete. Then Tim stepped up, brow furrowed, his skepticism still etched on his face. "You want to hear the stories, huh? You think that'll cure the hurt? What's next?" Jake swallowed hard. "Listening is just the start. I want to create a community center for families, somewhere we can gather, share, heal. It won't fix everything, but it's a step and effort to do right by you and those we've lost." Mark's expression softened, a hint of something real surfacing in his eyes. "If you're serious, you have to do more than listen. You need to actively make changes and involve us." The tension in the room was palpable. Jake felt open wounds laid bare, but also a flicker of light, begging for acknowledgement. The faces around him shifted, and for the first time, he saw a path, a journey towards something bigger than himself, but just as he began to feel a swell of hope, the older woman spoke again, "And what if it doesn't work? What if we try and you leave again?" Jake felt the wind momentarily leave his lungs. Their fears mirrored his own. What if he failed? What then? He couldn't allow the past to define him, or this community. He was committed now. He was ready to fight. "Then I will be right here," he vowed, looking her in the eyes, determination flooding him. "If it doesn't work, I won't turn my back again. I'll keep working until we find a way that does." As murmurs rippled through the room, Jake stood there, heart racing, facing uncertainty. They could either choose to embrace this offer or walk away from it. The weight of their shared pain felt daunting, yet the potential for change was intoxicating. He sensed the story was far from over. This was just the beginning, but deep down, an unsettling question lingered. Could he truly repair the damage done, or would he stumble in the face of such monumental expectations? Jake shifted his weight, feeling the heat of the room wrap around him like a thick blanket. The crowd had gone quiet again, but he could sense their collective heartbeat. Each person was teetering on the edge of hope and despair. He wanted to grasp that hope and hold it out like a lifeline, but doubt gnawed at his insides. "I want to start tonight," he said, his voice finding strength through the uncertainty. "Let us create a committee, people from our community who will help lead this effort. We can meet regularly, share our stories, our struggles, and our ideas on how to move forward." Tim, still skeptical, crossed his arms tightly. "And what makes you think we'll trust you? How do we know you won't bail when things get hard?" Looking directly into Tim's eyes, Jake's determination surged. "Because I've already seen how hard it is. I've felt the weight of my decisions sitting like a stone in my gut. I won't shy away from the challenges this community faces. I'll be with you through it all." A heavy pause hung in the air. The older woman was still watching him closely, a mix of caution and curiosity on her face. "And what if we put our faith in you and it all falls apart? What if it doesn't?" Jake shot back, his heart beating faster. "What if this is the moment we build something real? Together? I know we can't fix the past, but we can create a better tomorrow. One step at a time, together." Gradually, some heads began to nod. Jake could feel the energy shift. Was it a spark of hope? He looked around, noticing a few more people rising from their seats, ready to stand alongside him. "We've got a lot of hurt to work through," Mark said, his voice steady. "But if you're willing to walk with us, we'll take those steps with you." A wave of relief washed over Jake as the murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. This was a fragile beginning, but it was also a sign that maybe they could find strength together. As the meeting progressed, people began to share ideas, dreams, and even fears. They talked about the community center, about finding resources, about offering support to families when they needed it most. It felt like a lifeline pulling them up from the depths of their pain, each voice adding to a growing chorus of resilience. Suddenly, Sarah stood up. She hadn't spoken much, but her sincerity commanded attention. "I want to help too," she said. "I can help organize events, facilitate meetings, anything to keep this going." Her willingness sparked a new fire, and soon others started sharing what they could offer: skills, time, even a listening ear. But just then, a new voice emerged from the back. "What happens when the funding runs out? What's your plan B?" A woman in the crowd raised her eyebrow, skepticism firmly rooted in her stance. Jake's heart sank, but he knew he couldn't shy away from the question. "We'll make it sustainable," he asserted, his voice rising. "This isn't just about money, it's about creating a network of support. We'll work together. We'll fundraise, apply for grants, whatever it takes, but more importantly, we'll rely on each other." The tension in the room cracked open a little wider as people shifted, the atmosphere thick with determination. Jake felt emboldened. There was a glimmer of something promising building, a chance to weave together the stories that had been flung apart by loss. Outside the factory, darkness began to blanket the neighborhood, but inside, Jake sensed the light of possibility. He wasn't just a voice anymore, he was part of this community's heartbeat. Each name spoken, each story shared, felt like a stitch pulling their fractured lives together into something new. But as Jake looked at the eager faces around him, he couldn't shake the worry that lurked in the shadows of his mind. Had he truly tapped into the strength of community, or was he merely offering false hope? With determination etched into his heart, Jake took a deep breath, ready to move forward. They were just beginning, but shadows loomed both from the past and what lay ahead. The question now was, could they overcome their insecurities together, or would old wounds reopen before they could heal? Jake's heart raced as the room buzzed with renewed energy. He could feel the weight of anticipation pressing against his chest. Encouraged by the expressions around him, he stepped forward. If they were going to do this, really do it, he needed their stories to shape a vision. "Let's start with sharing," he suggested, glancing around the room. "Who wants to tell us how this has impacted you? What obstacles are you facing?" He could see the doubt still flickering in some eyes, but he was hopeful maybe listening could bridge the gap left by fear. A tall man near the back stood up hesitantly. "I lost my job at the factory," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to support my family now. It's like the ground dropped from underneath me." The silence in the room was heavy with understanding. Jake could see heads nodding, sympathy mingling with shared pain. This was real. This was why they were gathered. Another voice broke through the quiet. "I've been living with my sister since my divorce," a woman added, her face tinged with sorrow. "It's really hard to ask for help. I feel like I've failed." "No." Jake couldn't contain his frustration. "You haven't failed. You're here fighting for what you need. It takes courage to stand up and admit that things aren't easy." The energy shifted again, and one by one, more people opened up. They spoke of job losses, broken families, struggles with addiction, and overwhelming loneliness. Each story was a thread weaving deeper connections among them, binding their hearts tighter in shared vulnerability. As voices grew louder, Jake noticed Sarah lean closer to him. "We should write this down," she suggested softly. "Document everyone's stories, it's powerful." "Yes," Jake exclaimed, his eyes lighting up. "We can create a community book, a collection of our struggles, our triumphs, our plans for the future. Something we can share with city officials, grant organizations. They need to see us, hear us." Mark stood up, a fire in his eyes. "I have a friend who's a graphic designer. He'd help us with layout. And I can talk to some local businesses about sponsorship. Count me in too." Another voice shouted from the back, and soon people were rising, offering their skills. Jake felt a warmth swell in his chest. They were coming together, each person contributing their piece of the puzzle. As the night wore on, laughter mingled with tears. They spoke about future events and meetings, ideas for fundraisers sparked and fizzled like fireworks in the night sky. It felt electric, alive with potential, yet, even amid the excitement, Jake felt a small knot of anxiety tightening in his gut again. Were they truly ready for this? Could they hold on to this momentum, or would the flicker of hope extinguish when the first storm came? The air crackled with possibility, but behind the joy lurked the daunting shadows of their individual struggles. Jake's gaze drifted to the window and the darkened street outside. It seemed daunting, like the vast unknown ahead. His breath caught as he turned back to the group, faces illuminated with resolve. No matter what happens next, he said, trying to pull his scattered thoughts together, we take this journey together. We will uplift each other. A wave of affirmation rippled through the crowd, people raising their hands, clapping, some even shouting yes. But the deeper question lingered within Jake: could they withstand the inevitable challenges life would throw their way? As Jake looked around at the hopeful faces, he felt a mixture of hope and fear collide. Would their dreams endure under pressure, or would they unravel, leaving them all hanging on the edge again? The truth was still lurking, and they were on the brink of a journey filled with uncertainty and potential. What he needed to confront now was not just the plans for their community, but the realities that awaited them outside these walls. What challenges were waiting just around the corner to test their resolve? The following week was a whirlwind. Jake barely had time to catch his breath between brainstorming sessions, planning meetings, and gathering stories. The energy buzzed in the room like static electricity, each idea sparking other thoughts, igniting hope. However, Jake couldn't shake the fear embedded deep within him. What if it was too much too soon? As they settled into their routine, the first official community meeting took place in the local library, a space filled with warm wood and the faint scent of old books. Rows of chairs were arranged, and slowly, people trickled in. Each familiar face brought with it a wave of recognition mixed with apprehension. Jake decided to kick things off with a triumphant tone. Welcome, everyone. Let us be real about the challenges we face and find real solutions together. He glanced around the room, reading expressions that mirrored his inner turmoil but also glistened with a faint glimmer of hope. Let us start with the book, Sarah suggested, her excitement spilling over like champagne. We need to get started on collecting stories. She looked around, her determination radiating off her. Who wants to share? One by one, stories were offered, fragments of lives shaking under the pressures of change. Mary, an elderly widow, spoke of loneliness echoing through her empty house. I used to host potlucks. Now, I can hardly bear to eat alone, she admitted, her voice trembling but resolute. Another man, Marco, shared his tale of struggling to find work post-recovery. It's like I'm living in the shadows of my past, but I refuse to let it define me, he proclaimed. The room was silent, their breaths catching at the weight of vulnerability. These raw moments tethered everyone in mutual understanding. There was a palpable feeling that no one was alone in their struggles. As they began to write these stories down, Jake felt hope surge inside him, as if the words being penned could truly unify them. There was something magical about sharing, something that lifted burdens, but then, the door swung open, and in walked a tall man cloaked in shadows, uncertainty written on his face. Everyone turned, and for a second, tension thickened in the air like hot steam. Jake recognized him, Daniel, someone he hadn't seen in years. They used to be good friends until life and hardship had snipped their ties. Hey, Daniel said, his voice cracking slightly. I heard about what you all are doing and I wanted to help. The group shifted uneasily, whispers racing like wildfire. Jake's heart pounded. Could they trust him? Had he truly changed? Would he pull them all back into the struggles they fought so hard to overcome? But Sarah stepped forward, her kindness cutting through the uncertainty. Everyone deserves a second chance, especially now. We want you with us, Daniel. And just like that, the heaviness was replaced with a flicker of warmth, the possibility of redemption. Still, doubt loomed large over Jake. Could they move forward together with someone who bore the weight of broken trust? As they talked, Jake's mind raced ahead, the questions spiraling in his thoughts. Could he risk their burgeoning community? What if Daniel was the catalyst for something beautiful or a potential threat? With every story shared, every note taken, the fear coalesced into determination. They were fighting for a brighter future in a world fraught with shadows, and just as the meeting wound down, thoughts racing about the storm around them, Jake scanned the room. This was it. This was their moment. But the lingering thought would not release him. What if all it took was one misstep to pull them all apart? The weight of uncertainty thrummed beneath his skin, yet hope flickered defiantly, daring him to act. As Daniel shared his story, Jake knew they would need strength to forge ahead. Would they move into the light together, or would darkness once again divide them? As Jake watched Daniel step into the circle of light cast by the old library's lamps, something shifted in him. The group was now listening intently. Daniel's story was raw, punctuated by pauses that hung in the air. He spoke of struggling against his demons, of nights spent battling the urge to slip back into old habits. "I lost my way," he admitted, glancing down. "But I've been trying to find my footing again. I want to give back, to make things right." The words hung in the air like a promise. Jake's heart raced. Could Daniel really mean it? The room, once filled with unease, now vibrated with a mix of skepticism and cautious optimism. Jake's chest tightened, memories of their past flooding back the laughter, the shared secrets, the fallout when everything collapsed. He knew all too well how betrayal could sour friendships. Yet, there was something about Daniel's resolve that sparked a flicker of something Jake hadn't felt in a long time: hope. He exchanged glances with Sarah. She nodded, urging him silently to let go of his fears. As Daniel continued, a voice from the back piped up. It was Mary again. "What do you plan to do to help us, Daniel?" Her voice was steady, but Jake spotted the slight tremble in her hand. "It starts with listening," Daniel answered, his eyes genuine. "I want to hear your stories, your struggles. Maybe I can help, maybe we can help each other." The murmurs swirled. It was an invitation, yet it felt tenuous, like standing on the edge of a cliff. Jake leaned forward, letting the moment wash over him. "What if we create a community project? A way for us to share not only our stories but also our resources?" Excitement rippled through the room. People nodded, the idea taking root. Chris, a young father without stable employment, jumped in. "We could set up workshops. Teach each other skills like job interviewing, budgeting." A flicker of agreement swept the crowd. Every person in that room had something valuable to offer. This was their chance to grow together, to overcome the barriers that had isolated them for too long. Jake felt the energy morphing, shifting from skepticism to collective possibility. The tension in his shoulders eased as he exchanged a hopeful glance with Sarah again. They were crafting something beautiful, an opportunity to heal, to rebuild broken connections, but, even as enthusiasm hummed around him, Jake couldn't entirely silence the nagging voice in his head. Could this truly be a new beginning for Daniel? Or would their efforts come crashing down, splintering the fragile bonds they were trying to forge? Just as Jake opened his mouth to speak again, the power went out, plunging the room into darkness. Gasps echoed. The faint light of smartphones flickered on, illuminating startled faces. In the sudden silence, Daniel's voice broke through, steady and calm. "I know this feels unsettling, but let us use it as a moment to reflect. Even when the world seems dark, we can be each other's light." Jake felt a rush of warmth from Daniel's words, but the doubt crept back. Was this darkness a sign? A test of their unity before they could carry on? With the flicker of phones, Jake could see every face glowing with uncertainty and cautious determination. They had a decision to make. As laughter broke out when someone fumbled with their phone, lighting it up like a tiny flashlight, tension began to ease again. Maybe this was a metaphor of sorts about illuminating their true selves, lighting the way through shared vulnerabilities. But with the uncertainty still looming over them, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that their moment of truth was drawing near. Would they rise together or stumble in the dark? And just as he felt the weight of that thought, the lights flickered back on, brighter than before. "Let us keep going," Jake suggested, his voice ringing louder than before, emboldened by the moment. But now, there was a new urgency in his heart. What lay ahead would demand bravery, and Jake knew they were on the edge of something monumental or potentially catastrophic. Would they embrace the leap of faith together, or would the shadows drag them back? The next few weeks passed in a blur of excitement and hard work. The community center was alive again, filled with laughter, planning, and a shared vision. Day by day, both Jake and the townsfolk chipped away at the walls built by time and hurt. Jake felt lighter, more connected every time he entered that space. Still, lingering doubts danced in the corners of his mind. Would this last? Could they really heal those deep wounds? But as he watched Mary and others share stories, hope began to weave itself into the very fabric of their gathering. One day, as the sun poured through the library windows, Jake glanced at the faces around him. He saw Tim, softly nodding, eyebrows unfurrowed, the skepticism dissolving slowly. "Jake," he said during one of their meetings. "I can see the change. But it's a long road ahead." "I know," Jake replied, his heart swelled with gratitude. "But I'm in it for the long haul." As if on cue, Sarah stood up, her excitement palpable. "We've got our first community fundraiser next week, the bake sale and talent show. Let us show everyone what we've got." There were cheers and laughter, an infectious energy elevating the room. It felt good, like a real family. Still, not everyone was on board. Jake felt Mark's gaze, still laced with doubts. A bake sale isn't gonna solve the bigger problems. This town needs jobs, stability, but Jake held on to the spark within him, the drive they could gain from this momentum. "Mark," Jake said, "every journey starts with small steps. This isn't just a bake sale, it's about bringing everyone together, showing people we care. We can work on the bigger things after." Reluctantly, Mark nodded, but the tension still brewed like clouds before a storm. The day of the fundraiser arrived, buzzing with anticipation. The community center brimmed with joy, kids laughing, parents sharing recipes, and Jake felt the warmth of camaraderie filling his heart. He was in the thick of it, standing behind a table piled high with baked goods. "Care for a cupcake?" he asked, handing one to an eager child, who squealed with delight before rushing off to find his friends. For the first time, Jake genuinely smiled without a hint of guilt shadowing his thoughts. As they gathered for the talent show, a sense of unity and excitement pulsed through the crowd. Tim stepped forward, his uncertainties replaced with a determined spirit as he took the microphone. "I want to say how proud I am to see all of you here, coming together, ready to rebuild what was lost starting tonight." The crowd erupted into applause, and Jake knew they were on the brink of something profound. But then, as the smiles began to take center stage, a commotion erupted near the back. It was Mark. "Wait. This won't work. You'll all forget about the real issues when the candles burn down." Jake felt his heart drop as Mark's voice echoed loud and clear, like a rock dropped into still pond water, rippling through the exhilaration. The crowd murmured uneasily, doubt creeping back in like an unwelcome shadow. "Mark," Jake shouted, trying to calm the growing tension. "Tonight is about coming together, community spirit. No one is ignoring the issues, but we have to start here to build from joy, not fear." A gasp swept through the crowd, but he could see the flicker of hope lingering. Mary stepped up, her face glowing. "We didn't say we could fix everything tonight, but we're here to try. Together." Her voice hit home, radiating sincerity, and the crowd began to rally. One by one, others joined in. Jake felt the tide returning, the community rallying behind the warmth that had ignited their hopes. Mark held the microphone for a moment longer, searching the audience, yet the resilience was unmistakable. "Fine. Just remember it's going to be a long battle." With that tense exchange hanging in the air, Jake felt the spark reignite, strong and vibrant. The talent show ramped up, and suddenly, it didn't matter if they faced struggles. Together, even in the face of hardship, they had a chance. As the night wore on, they presented stories poured out in laughter and tears. A young woman sang a soulful tune about her struggles, and the crowd applauded, tears glistening in their eyes. When Jake took the stage, he leaned into his final thoughts. "This is just the beginning. We've started a fire, and with your help, and your stories, it will grow brighter." A voice echoed from the crowd. "And we've got your back, Jake." The room swelled with cheers. As the night closed and the stars twinkled down, Jake took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of belonging buzz through him once more. This wasn't the end but the start of a journey, the dawn of something greater. Jake stood with Sarah, Tim, and a community transformed behind him. Through pain, they were creating beauty. They shared glances, full of understanding, and unspoken vow that they would face whatever storms lay ahead together. A deep sense of harmony settled within Jake. He would keep working for them, for the stories that needed to be told. Hope flared again, bright as the stars overhead. The road would be difficult, but as he watched the community dance, laugh, and celebrate, he knew they were ready to stand side by side and forge the future they all deserved. And so he realized, every person mattered, every story counted. Through love and unity, they would rise above, together. Now more than ever, the future was theirs to claim. So whatever challenges came next, Jake felt a conviction swell in his heart. As long as they had each other, nothing could stop them, not ever. This was home. Now more than ever, it was time to act, to remember these moments of connection, and to embrace the journey ahead. The future awaited, and together, they were ready. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that follow these incredible transformations. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support heartfelt storytelling. Comment your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to spread the message of hope. Only true fans see the power of connection in every story.